Welcome to How to Survive Divorce Without a Rebound, a Chocolate Coma, or Complete Life Meltdown. I'm Chrissy, an internationally certified divorce coach and mum. If life has handed you a divorce-shaped plot twist you didn't ask for, you're in the right place. Because while I can't make the paperwork disappear, I can help you navigate this chapter without losing your mind, your dignity, or your entire stash of emergency snacks. Each week, I'll help you navigate this chapter with more confidence, clarity, and a lot less overwhelm. So, whether you're listening from the school pickup line, hiding in the pantry for 5 minutes of peace, or taking a walk to clear your head, I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome, beautiful mothers. If you are here today, there is a good chance you are going through one of the most disorienting seasons of your life. And divorce isn't just a legal process. It's not just paperwork and negotiations and all the logistics like everybody thinks it is. It's grief. And not the kind of grief most people recognize. Today we're going to talk about what grief actually looks like during divorce, why it can feel so confusing and inconsistent, what ambiguous grief is, why it's often harder than traditional grief, and I guess most importantly, got some grounded, practical ways to help you move through it rather than just getting stuck in the grief, which is what most commonly happens and is exactly what happened to me. This episode is here to help you feel less alone and to give you language for what you're experiencing. So, the reality of divorce grief. Let's look at that. When people think of grief, they usually think of death. And in this next part, I'm going to talk about the difference between death grief and grief of a marriage, just to give some context. And I want to put the disclaimer in there that in no way am I downplaying the impact or the intensity of grief experience from a death, but when we look at the two independently, it gives context to what grief from a divorce brings. And with a death, there's a clear ending, a funeral, a moment where everyone acknowledges something is over. Divorce doesn't work like that. There's no single moment where it begins or it ends, and there's no shared ritual where people gather and say, this mattered. Instead, grief in divorce shows up in fragments, and you might feel relief one moment, deep sadness the next, anger, confusion, and even hope all in the same day. I always refer to this that divorce is like a constant roller coaster of 4 seasons in one day. Sometimes 1 hour, sometimes 1 minute. I will go through all those seasons in a very short space of time and on repeat. And that can make you question yourself constantly. Am I doing this right? Why do I still miss him? Why am I sad when I chose this? Or why am I sad when I knew it needed to happen? But here's the truth. All of that is grief. You're not just grieving a person. You are grieving the life you thought you had, the future you thought you'd have, the future you'd hoped for, the version of yourself you were potentially in that relationship. Maybe not at the end of the relationship, but the version of yourself that you were in the beginning of that relationship. You're grieving the sense of certainty and your identity. You're grieving the financial safety, the version of the relationship that you actually believed in. You're grieving daily life and the familiarity of it, emotional safety, even if that relationship wasn't perfect. You're grieving the family unit, those social circles. And for me, this was a big one, that feeling of belonging when you are sometimes exiled from a family. And sometimes, even if the relationship was difficult or painful, you're still grieving what it could have been. And that's one of the hardest parts to explain to other people, because from the outside, they might think, well, it's for the best. And there's a standard response we've all said before, just because we haven't known what else to say. And because people could see, in many relationships, could see the toxicity in it. They could see that it was unhealthy or wasn't great, or you weren't your best and they weren't their best. And so they'll say it's for the best. But grief doesn't disappear just because something was the right decision either. So why does divorce grief feel so confusing? One of the reasons divorce grief feels so intense is because it's not linear. You don't move neatly through the stages. Instead, it's ridiculously unpredictable. And you might feel like you're doing okay. This was me all the time. You might feel like you're doing all okay, and then something small hits you. It could be, I don't know, a song, a memory, a date on the calendar, and suddenly, bam, you're right back in it. And this happens because your brain is trying to process multiple losses at once. It's got the emotional loss, the practical loss, that the home, finances, routines that you had, the relational loss, those shared friends and the family dynamics. And a really powerful one is that identity loss. And all of these layers don't resolve at the same time. They can take time. And for some people, they can take years. It took years for me. And for some people, if they mask the grief, then later it can show up 10 years later. It could show up in the next relationship. So it's not clear cut. And instead of a straight line, grief in divorce looks more like constant waves. Some days are calm and some days it bloody knocks you over. And both are just simply like part of the process, and we have to accept that. So understanding what ambiguous grief is also really important. It's something that most people I know don't even know what ambiguous grief is. So let's talk about that. So ambiguous grief is something that, like I said, most people have never heard of, but almost everyone going through divorce experiences. And it happens when the loss isn't clear-cut. The person's still alive, the relationship may not feel fully over, and there's no defined ending. And that lack of clarity makes it really hard for your brain to process. If we compare it to traditional grief, where someone has passed away, there's quite a distinct ending because that person has passed. And there's always social acknowledgement. You have a funeral or some sort of celebration that acknowledges the person and what's been lost. And usually that is through that funeral celebration. So there's permission amongst society for you to actually grieve. And there's also this acceptance of that person might be down, might be sad, might be struggling. And there's a lot of support that rallies around that person because it's very clear, oh, they've lost someone, they're grieving. Let's give them all the support and love that they need. Whereas in ambiguous grief, the ending is blurred and others may not recognize really how deep that pain is for you. You may feel like you should be over it already because that's the message that people are sending to you or showing you by not really acknowledging and giving you that support. And this creates something really important that we have to understand is that your grief doesn't get validated in the same way as that traditional grief. Because you might hear things like, oh, you'll find someone else. Oh, don't worry, you'll find someone else. Oh, at least it wasn't worse, or it's time to move on. Oh my gosh, I can vividly remember someone saying to me, surely you're over him by now. And it just crushed me inside because the truth was I wasn't. It wasn't that I wanted my ex-husband still. It was that I grieved the friendship, that love that we'd had in the beginning of our relationship, and I still had this strong desire for our co-parenting relationship to be very different than what it was becoming. And I missed things. I missed the good times. I missed, the funny times that we laughed. I was grieving deeply, deeply the family that I lost and my sense of belonging in that family unit. And instead of helping, those comments that people say without thinking can make you just feel so isolated and so stupid. Well, I felt ridiculously weak, and I actually felt quite ashamed of the grief that I was feeling. And why the fuck have I not gotten over him yet? Why, when I hear his voice, does it trigger me? Why, when I hear his voice, do I just want to curl in a ball and cry? Why was I feeling all of this? And these people didn't understand that because it's just not clear. So ambiguous grief is often more complicated than the traditional grief because you're just not letting go of what was. You're also trying to make sense of what still feels really unfinished. And gosh, the questions that went through my mind constantly, like, did he ever really love me? Oh my gosh, that one went through it over and over. Could this have been different? Would it all be okay if I had said this differently and done this differently? And Why is he being so cruel? Did I really deserve it? Who am I now without this relationship? I felt so empty. And those questions don't have easy answers. And that uncertainty keeps the grief active and it keeps it alive, which is why we get stuck in it. It's so very easy for us to get stuck in it. All right, let's have a quick look at what might grief look like for you. And don't worry, I will get to the strategies on how to help you not get stuck in that grief. But for now, it's really important that we acknowledge, that we understand, so that we can see the difference. And it also might help you explain it to other people when they don't understand and you need their support. So what might grief look like for you? Okay, well, it doesn't always show up as sadness. It can show up as emotional numbness. So, that feeling flat, disconnected, or like you're just going through the motions. The way I felt it was that I had this emptiness in my gut, even to deep levels of disassociation in my day. That was my coping mechanism to deal with the emotional numbness. It can show up as anger and irritability. This one's my favourite. Not my favourite, but this one was a very common one for me. And the anger and irritability is not just towards your ex, but towards everything and everyone. And what we often forget is that anger always comes from a deep-seated sadness and fear. It can come from other things, but really that is where, when you dig deep, it nearly always comes from sadness or fear. So just recognizing that the anger and irritability that you have, that's the grief, because you have this deep sadness and you just feel frustrated that you're not shifted out of it yet. It can also show up as anxiety about the future. So you've got this anxiety and worry about your finances, the living arrangements, like parenting, and how you're going to start over. There is so much uncertainty during this season. It can show up as obsessive thinking. Oh, this one's a good one. Replaying conversations in our heads so many days and nights of going over and over and over the conversations and trying to figure it all out. This can just start to create this really strong obsessive need to control everything. And I'm saying all of this and laughing a little bit because this is just what I did for so long and it exhausted me. And I don't want it to exhaust you. It may show up as unexpected triggers. Things that suddenly bring up an intense emotion. I remember it a good year after my divorce was final and my children called me on Christmas Day from their dads and told me that their dad was getting married again. And I stayed composed on the phone and then I hung up and got that horrific sick feeling in my stomach. And not because I wanted to be with him again, but once again, the loss of that family unit and the grief from everything that still hadn't been resolved, that was still going on 5 years after the split, and we were still dealing with struggling communication, things like that. It hit me. It hit me like a freight train. And sometimes it's a song or a movie that reminds me of him or a time in our marriage, and it just punches you in the gut unexpectedly, those triggers. And then sometimes it can also show up as relief mixed in with guilt. So after marriage, we'll often go over in our minds all the things we did and said that were unkind or caused the other person pain or sadness. And for me, this was every little thing. A random memory would flash in my mind and I would overanalyze it, feeling that grief. And then what would follow would be all the things that he had said or did that hurt me deeply, and I would feel relief. But then I think about my relief and then feel guilty of feeling my relief. And it would play on my mind for hours. And I know every divorced mother I speak to has gone through this. In fact, divorced men that I've spoken to, the same thing. It goes over and over in your minds. And the most important part of this is to recognize that this is normal. Grief is not just sadness. It's your system trying to reorganize after a major life disruption. Okay, we've taken the time to understand divorce-related grief, but if you don't find ways of processing that grief, the good strategies to help you move through it, it can result in, really great negative outcomes later on. For me, it was a full burnout. For others, it comes out in sickness or depression, anxiety, or any number of physical, emotional symptoms, and it ends up impacting all aspects of your life. It will impact your children, your future relationships, your health, your mental health, your career, like the list goes on. So we can see the value in finding the strategies to help you move through that grief. Before we continue, a quick reminder that if you're going through separation or divorce right now, you don't have to do it alone. My 4-week How to Survive Divorce program helps mothers navigate the survival season with practical tools, weekly live coaching, Q&A support, direct access to me, an internationally certified coach who has personally survived divorce, and a community of women who truly understand what you're going through. I also offer one-on-one coaching if you're looking for more personalised support. You'll find all the details in the show notes or at thisismeChrissy.com. Now, let's get back to the episode. All right, let's talk about what actually helps. And when I deliver these tips, I'm never delivering them in a fix it quickly way. It's never a let's fix it, and it's something you can't rush. And no matter what you see advertised, it's bullshit. There is no quick fix to this. And I wish there was. I so deeply wish there was, because they're the best sellers. And people who sell you the quick fix are usually just trying to make money off that person. I tell it like it is, but I give you tools to help yourself. So, and some of the strategies can be very simple, but they have to be done repeatedly, consistently for a long period of time for them to actually rewire your brain and help you to process that grief. So let's talk about strategies of how to move through that grief. Okay, so the first strategy is naming what you're experiencing. Once again, I said these are super simple, but I'm telling you, your brain is already overloaded with so many things. So just take them on board, see which ones resonate, pick them and do them, even if it's one a day. So name what you're experiencing. So one of the most powerful things that you can do, and that I did, was simply say, if I was feeling angry or sad or really overwhelmed that day or something came up, I just say to myself, this is grief. Just acknowledging it. I'd even say it out loud if I was on my own. This is grief. There's the grief. So that's not weakness. Recognizing when you're saying it, it's not a weakness, it's not a failure, and you're not going backwards either. It's just grief. And naming it reduces that confusion and that self-judgment. So it's as simple as you experience big emotion, a big reaction to something, and you just notice it in your head, out loud, say, there's the grief. All right, strategy number 1. Strategy number 2, stop expecting consistency. You're not going to feel better in a straight line. So instead of asking, why am I back here again? Say, there's another wave. It's just a season and it will pass. Now, it might sound at the beginning a bit contrived and you're like, it doesn't sound right, but say it in whatever your words are. But for me, I'm just like, here we go. That's another wave. And it's just a season, it'll pass. And it's kind of like having a little conversation with yourself to just calm you. It's a bit like, I always think of it as, how would I speak to my children? What would I say to my children if they are struggling and they're getting angry with themselves and frustrated? I'd say to them, this is going to pass. I know it's really hard, but it's going to pass. How can I help? Or what do you need? Or make them laugh, whatever it might be. But I would say to them, yeah, I know this is hard, but it's going to pass. And the goal isn't to eliminate the waves, it's to learn how to move through them. And the aim of this is to accept that the waves will come and they'll go, and it can help over time to stop needing to control everything and everyone around us so that we feel less out of control with our life. And I will, in later episodes, cover all of these strategies. I will cover them all in more depth. But just to start with, because it's so overwhelming, I'm just giving you little teeny tiny steps. Because I know that if I give you even 5 tiny steps and you go away, and I said, you must do all 5 of these steps, you're not going to bloody do them. You're going to do one of them, maybe, because you're going to get out there and straight away some child's going to call and be like, Mommy, and immediately you've forgotten that strategy. So, and you've got no time because you're overwhelmed with so much that's going on in your head and in your physical world right now. So I'm giving you lots of little ones. All right, the third one, Create some small anchors in your day when everything feels unstable. Some little small consistencies do matter. This might be a morning walk. It might be a cup of tea at the same time each day. It might be journaling for 10 minutes, whatever resonates for you. So for me, one of the things that stayed consistent for me the entire separation and divorce season, and I still to this day do, is I have a morning routine and an evening routine that I pretty much stick to. Now, sometimes, yes, some months and weeks or days, it might not happen exactly how I like it, but there is a very clear routine that I established in the very beginning, and I was very strict on it. It was no one's impacting my morning, no one's impacting my evening, because it was before the children were awake and after the children went to bed, and it was my time, and it was my time to calm my nervous system. It was absolutely critical. Now, so for me, in the morning, I just think is such a great way to start. And even if you're not a morning person, getting up before your children is probably one of the best things you can do. So for me, I was like, fuck the rest of the day. I don't care if the rest of the day is just a complete shit show and chaos. That's okay. During this season, once the kids are up, I'm on and that's fine. And never anything can be thrown my way. But before that, it was my time. So in the morning, I would wake up around 5:30. I'd get a cup of hot lemon water and I would stand out the front of my house on the lawn with my bare feet and I would listen to the birds. I'd sit on my rocking chairs for around anywhere up to 45 minutes, but sometimes it was just 5 minutes. 5 minutes depends on how quickly those kids got up. And I would do some basic left nostril breathing for 3 minutes and I'd feel my feet on the grass. And there was one thing that I said every single morning. I still say it to this day. Thank you, God, for another day. You can say whatever resonates. I often say, thank you, God. Whatever comes my way today, I know I can handle it. Whatever resonates for you, you come up with something. But every morning I can strongly suggest having some time. In the evening for me, it was when the kids went to bed. I would have really soft lighting on and I would put a candle, get a cup of tea, and I would have a bath or a shower. And then I would sit in bed and read. No screens, no devices, just my time. And that helped calm my nervous system too. Made me feel like I had those moments were my moments and they were routine. So strategy number 4 is limit the meaning-making spiral. Okay, so it's natural for us to want answers. We want to know what went wrong, who was at fault, whether it could have been saved, all the questions. But there's a point where this becomes a loop that keeps you stuck. And when you notice yourself spiraling, you need to gently interrupt it. You don't need to solve the entire relationship to move forward. How do you do that? Okay, so if in that moment you have a thought and you're like, oh, what's going on? And you recognize you're spiraling, it could be as simple as click your fingers. I don't know, rub your hands together, have a song that you start singing in your head. Anything you can do that can shift. Do 10 star jumps. If you could do exercise, that'd be awesome because that will definitely shift and get the blood flowing as well. If you have capacity to listen to a funny podcast, do that. But first recognizing and going, oh, I've spiraled. I need to stop it. So in later episodes, I'll be doing a deeper dive on the strategies to shift your brain's patterns during this phase. But for now, don't want to overwhelm it. So this is a good start. Just something to snap you out of it. The 5th one is allow mixed emotions. Now, you can miss that person and know it wasn't right. You can feel relief and feel the grief at the same time. And these emotions aren't contradictions, they're just complexity to it. And trying to force a single correct feeling often makes things harder. You know, I think about when I ask friends how they are and they say, oh, yes, I'm fine. And I can deeply sense they're not. Or a friend tells you what's going on and then instead of having a big cry and saying, I just feel freaking terrible, they hold it in and say something like, oh, it's all okay, just having a moment. And they've suppressed the emotion that clearly needs to just be released. And I have this beautiful friend, Emily, and she has a school for sensitive women. It's a beautiful school. And she talks about giving yourself a grief playlist and all the songs that will really get you to release all the tears. And then you give yourself this period of time, say like 20 minutes, to just cry, scream, and just let it all out. I have done this several times, many times. And then at the end of the 20 minutes, you turn it off, acknowledging that you've let the sadness or anger come out. And then you find a way to bring the calm and peace back to you. So, maybe a relaxing shower or a good book in bed before you sleep, or that will shift the emotion back into calm. And the more that we allow the body to do this, the less we hold on and the less builds up over time, which if you hold onto it for too long and repress, it can show up in very unpleasant and physical and emotional symptoms later on. So we're really feeling it strongly. Give yourself the time. And I will talk later in other episodes about how to find the time for that as well. So another one is be intentional about your inputs. So what you consume matters during this time. If you are constantly checking social media or your ex's social media, reading worst case scenarios, comparing your journey to others, it can intensify your distress. I know you already know this, but instead of choosing those inputs, you want to choose things that ground you or educate you or just support your healing. And I strongly suggest getting off social media for this period of time. I did that for a very solid period of time. There was a point where I said, I can't do this anymore. It's ruining me. I would notice that I would get on social media and within half an hour I felt depressed and isolated and I felt horrific in the evenings. So yeah, I hear you saying, oh, but that's how I connect, or but I look at funny and motivating things. But here's the thing. The algorithms will make sure that you are seeing the feeds in between and not good for you. That feeds on your grief and it keeps you in the grief cycle. It will still be there. Those social media posts, they will still be there later. So maybe just let all your good friends know. That's what I did. Let all my good friends know, hey, I'm going off social media for a while. If you want me, I'm on WhatsApp or you can contact me. And it made me more intentional about actually seeing people. And it also was interesting to see who reached out and who wanted to actually get in touch and hang out with me as well. So that's a good way of like going, okay, who can I really lean on for support at the moment? So that can also help. The last one is to stay connected. So that kind of falls into you get off the social media. It frees up opportunity for you to make a call to a friend. And even like light conversations, you could just say to a friend, hey, I don't really want to talk about the divorce right now, but I'd love to just like talk. It could be you get a support group around the neighborhood or a divorce coach. Now, honestly saved me having a divorce coach. She was phenomenal. And I would just call her and she would help me to work through whatever I was struggling with and then make me laugh. It was so good because she wasn't emotionally or personally invested in what was going on. And it just gave me that little, skip in my step each day when I was really, really struggling. So that could be an option as well. But any way that you can connect, even if it's like taking the time to do a dance class or an art class. And I know people say, oh, this is what you should do. And often it can be tricky when you are single and you've maybe don't have as much support, but I will cover that in later topics as well. So it's really just about staying connected so that you just don't feel so isolated. Now, I know we've covered a lot of heavy stuff and quite a few strategies, but if there is one thing to take away from today, it's this. What you're experiencing is real and it makes sense. Divorce grief is complex because the loss is really complex. And it's not just about a relationship ending. It's about identity, future, stability, and meaning. And it's all shifting at once. And that takes time to process. You don't have to rush it. You don't have to get over it on anyone else's timeline. But you can move through it gently and gradually and in your own way. And as you do, you won't just survive this season. You'll begin to rebuild something new on the other side of it. When I was in the thick of it, I remember crying night after night after night and thinking, will this ever end? And I'm never going to get out of it. I did have those moments. And I can tell you, I am out of it and I am fine. And I see this time and time again. I see women on both sides of the timeline, or at the start of it, in the thick of it, and those that have come through it. And remember that the healing will come, but for now, it's about surviving through what is that grief that you're processing. So thank you so much for being here. If you've made it all the way through this podcast, thank you. And if this episode resonated with you, you might want to come back and listen again. especially on the harder days, or you might want to take some notes or read the notes and take those strategies with you. And if you're looking for more structured support through this process, there are ways to get deeper into this work. I offer one-on-one coaching. I offer a 4-week How to Survive Divorce course. You can find links in the show notes. And if you have questions, I'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a topic that you'd love me to talk on, reach out. Let me know. But for now, just take the next small step, even if it's just one of the steps I talked about in this show. That's enough. Until the next episode, lots of love. Thank you so much for being here. If this episode resonated with you, you'll find a summary sheet in the show notes, along with details about my one-on-one coaching and 4-week How to Survive Divorce program if you'd like additional support. If today's episode helped you feel seen or sparked a small step, don't forget to follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if there's a woman or mother in your world that needs this kind of support, send this to her because it might be the reminder, reassurance or support she needs right now. Until next time, be kind to yourself, skip the rebound, leave the chocolate coma behind, and keep taking one step at a time. Lots of love, Chrissy. Just a reminder that everything shared in this podcast is based on personal experience, coaching perspectives, and general wellbeing information. The stories and insights I share come from my own lived experience and are intended to support and encourage you, but every person's situation, relationship, and healing journey is different. What worked for me or for others may not be right for you. This podcast is not medical, psychological, legal, or therapeutic advice, and it's important that you seek support from qualified professionals for your own individual circumstances. Please use your own judgment and take what resonates with you while considering your own experiences, needs, and well-being. If you're struggling emotionally, experiencing severe distress, or feeling unsafe, please contact a mental health professional or emergency support service in your area. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.